Sharkie Game here. So today we'll take a look at the Splitfish EdgeFX controller for the PlayStation 2. This is basically a mouse and joystick, or I guess a chuck-like controller for the PlayStation 2, built for first-person shooters. Let's take a look at the box. So as you see, it says the Splitfish logo there. It says they must have ultimate game advantage. Shows a bit of an image of it. Down here it says the first dynamic optic combo controller for game consoles. It's got a bit of a character there. Helicopter. The other side. Get them before they get you. So on the top of the box, it just got the Splitfish logo again. Same with the bottom. On the side here it says features include universal compatibility, works with all games, EdgeFX accuracy and responsiveness make it the weapon of choice for first-person shooters, FPS. The lap pad allows you to play in comfort in any position. Ergonomic design lets you play with less finger movement. The left-hand grip is detachable for varied gameplay styles. A focus button allows you to slow down the snipe enemies. Force feedback in the optical controller intensifies the action. The other thing is, package includes right-hand optical controller, detachable left-hand controller, molded mouse and controller base, and user manual. On the back of the box, it shows another kind of shooters there, PlayStation 2. Shows another image of the controller. And it says, the evolution of console gaming. Introducing the Splitfish EdgeFX competition controller, precision combo. Detachable left-hand controller and right-hand optical control system for superior precision and speed. The ultimate FPS weapon for the PS2. So let's go ahead and open up the box and have a look at this thing. Okay, so the first part is you get this like mouse mat. It's also got a handle here where you can actually put the left-handed controller into, that you actually control. So it's sort of like a shape kind of mold there, and you can actually grip it on here. That part is your mouse mat. And the good part of this is actually moves as well, so you can adjust it, or you can just put it on your leg. So it's just to give you a sturdy type of base. Has a Splitfish there, and it's got a mouse mat type cover. Of course, the main component of this is the mouse and the joystick controller. So they're attached with a cable in between them. And they've also got a fairly long cable going to your console with the PlayStation plug. So it's a two-part piece. The first part is a mouse. Now, it is just like a standard mouse. You've got your clicks. So you've got another button in the center. Got your start button, and you've got your main PlayStation buttons on the side, so X, circle, square, triangle, which you use your thumb to press. So it's an optical mouse, as you can see. It's quite small. It fits in your hand quite well, though. I mean, even though it's a small mouse on the pad and that, you can very easily, comfortably and hold it. I find it fits your hand quite nicely, and it's very easy to move on the surface. Now what you'll notice with these type of basically mice is that they tend to work better on the surface they come with. So with this one in particular, I would only use this type of surface. Don't use a normal mouse mat because it just does not work as well on a normal mouse mat. It doesn't glide as well. You find it might stick a bit or it might stutter. But otherwise it works quite well as a normal mouse. And of course the other component of this is the actual joystick part. So this is the grip you hold in the other hand. You see you've got a stick, you've got the select button, you've got a D-pad. The side here you've got a sensitivity kind of wheel there that you can actually go back and forth depending on how sensitive you want the mouse to be. On the back here you've got an F, which is like a focus button. That's like slows down you could say the DPI of the mouse. And of course you've got button 1 and 2. So basically, the way it works is just like a normal shooter. Like, you can have two different arrangements. The main arrangement that would probably suit most people is hooking it into this grip side here, and having the mouse on the pad, and actually holding this maybe on your knee or something like this, and going like this. But you could quite easily, if you don't like that, have this on a surface or a table, hold this in your one hand and hold this in the other hand, and have this free range. You can hold it anyway and then use this as a mouse. So the way it works, like in general purpose, is when you're playing your shooter, this will be your aiming, and of course this will be your firing, and then this would be, depending on what it is on the game in particular, it could be alternate fire, it could be a zoom, it could be a whole manner of different things. And then you'd use these side buttons here to press the other functions like jump or crouch or grenade or whatever like this. And of course you've got these other trigger buttons on the side here that would be for other things. Now, a lot of games use these ones for grenade launching and stuff like that. So, and weapon swapping as well. And of course the D-pad is there in case you need that. And this is your movement. So you'd be playing the game, you'd be moving around, this would be your aiming, and you'd be shooting. So it basically gives you a PC-like experience on your console. And I found it actually works very well. Now, when you get it, you may find it feels a bit, I guess you could say, cheap, because it does feel a little cheap. It's very light. And probably the big downside I found about it is that this trigger button here, this one, sometimes if you bump it or you press it the wrong way, this button will actually completely pop out of there. So many times when I've actually been playing with it, I've been pressing it and playing, and that's accidentally popped out, and I've had to pause the game and try and look for my button where it's fallen on the floor. But other than that, I mean, that is one downside of it. It does feel kind of cheap, and the button does pop out occasionally, but it is an accurate mouse, and it works brilliantly with PS2 games. Now, this is the only split fish one made for the PS2 in particular, and with PS2 games, it works excellent. I mean, when I play first-person shooters on the PS2, I use this thing. It is brilliant. If I want something just quick, set up and plug in, I don't have to want to mess around with like mouse and keyboard adapters, like I do have a couple of those for PS2, then I break this one out and I use it. And I actually used this very briefly before, when I first got a PS3, I only had a PS2 to PS3 adapter. I never had much controllers for a PS3. I actually used that adapter and plugged this into my PS3 and used it for shooters on my PS3. And it worked perfectly on that as well. I remember playing Battlefield Bad Company, and I think it was only Battlefield Bad Company before I got my specialized PS3 version. But yeah, I played on the PS3 and it worked brilliantly with that. So I can quite honestly say that this is an excellent controller. It's accurate, it works the way it should do. The actual mouse works really well. You can aim way better than you can with a stick. So you can get way better headshots, way better accuracy in the gameplay itself. And this one, of course, is just like a traditional controller where you're moving around using the other buttons as the navigation. So if you have a PS2 and you like first-person shooters and you want something that is better than, say, a DualShock 2, you want something a bit more accurate to aiming and everything like this, this is what you need to look at. It is quick setup, so it's not like the adapters, which you can get adapters for the PS2 for plugging it directly a mouse and keyboard into it. But if you don't want the hassle of setting it up, configuring, customizing, all that thing, then this is something for you. You pretty much buy it, you set it up, and you're away to go. You just adjust the sensitivity depending on what game, and you're away. The only downside to this type of thing, of course, the biggest one, which I mentioned before, is that button and the cheapness of the product. It does feel a bit more cheap, although it does work very well. Alright, so even though it feels cheap and the button does come out occasionally, you can click it back in like in 2 seconds, and it works still just as well. The other downside is certain games on PS2, mainly Killzone and Time Splitters, because they're not exactly built for a mouse. You'll find that if you try use those games with this one, that they'll actually stutter a bit. Because when you're actually thinking of playing those games, when you move the stick, you're holding the stick to aim. With this one, you're moving the mouse, and then the cursor jumps back to the wasp position. So you're moving it, and then your cursor's jumping back. And the reason it's doing that is because there's no hold button for the mouse. So I wouldn't recommend this one for games. If you want like to play original Killzone and that, on the PS2, then this is not the one for you. Then you're better off just using a DualShock 2. But if you want to play games like Black, the Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, Medal of Honor series, Area 51, Red Faction, Half-Life, all those brilliant first-person shooters that are on the PS2, then this is something for you. It works brilliantly. I can highly recommend this. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of you say the split fish stuff are cheap, and I'm not saying that this isn't cheap. It is cheap. It's got a cheap build quality, but it works. And I mean, isn't that the most important thing, that it does work? Even though it's cheap, even though it is kind of plasticky and that, as long as it works, that's the way to go. So I mean, it could have been a bit more better quality. It could have been, I guess, a bit more quality parts and that. But overall, it does the job it was meant to do, and that is to be a replacement for the DualShock 2 to play first-person shooters. And personally, I have no complaints using it. It functions perfectly. I mean, the aim is on the mark, and I way prefer this to a DualShock 2. So if you're a PS2 owner, you have PS2 shooters, and you want something quick to set up, then by all means pick one of these up. You can get them very cheap these days, even complete with box and everything, so you can get them almost in mint condition, really cheap. And just make sure that when you are playing it, not to lose that button, because odds are, especially with shooters, at one point or another you are going to lose that button, and you just have to clip it back in. But overall, other than that little gripe, it is perfect, and I would highly recommend it to any shooter fan. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'm Sharkie Gamer. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll have heaps more controller and accessory reviews up very shortly. Please like the video if you like the video, and leave a comment down below if you'd like to. Thanks again for watching, guys.